Meeting will come to order. May I have a roll call, please? Babcock? Here. Chapman?
Here.
Egbert?
Here.
Gurian?
Here.
Kahn?
Here.
Morrison? Here. Seifert?
Here.
We are mindful at this meeting and all of our meetings that the mission of School District 15 is to produce world-class learners by building a connected learning community.
This evening, we're going to be led in the pledge by students from Carl Sandburg Junior High, and I'm going to ask Principal Doug Harder to bring his kids in to lead us in the pledge and tell us about their accomplishments.
Dr. Thompson, Board President Babcock, members of the District 15 Board of Education, community members, thank you for inviting us to this board meeting. We've chosen to bring students from the Carl Sandburg Junior High School team that participated in the Lego robotics competition. They are Alexa, wave. Hal, Min, Phoebe, Josephine, Logan, Jose. We are very proud of the accomplishments of this group, along with the obvious challenges and successes within the competition itself. These students and many others in this inclusive group established new friendships, collaborated effectively, raised money for the Buddy Foundation. The Carl Sandburg Lego team won the Judges Award again this year for its inclusive character and teamwork. And this is just a small portion of the group that made up the Lego robotics team.
Mr. Harder, could you have everybody get together so we could get a photograph of everyone in there, and then you can lead us in the pledge?
Over here. Yeah? Yep. Okay, so you're going to stay next to me. One, two, three. One more. One, two, three.
This will show up as breakfast.
Fine.
Okay.
Please rise, pledge allegiance.
Now, you guys?
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a pen for all of you over here for the Board of Education. Lights up. Scientists come in here and help.
For this one, yep.
Absolutely.
Nice work. Congratulations.
On this one.
Nice work.
Congratulations.
Al?
Nice work.
No, go in front of it.
Nice work.
Watch your step.
Congratulations.
Thank you for coming. Congratulations. Thank you.
Great job.
Nice job. Thank you.
Jose, congratulations. Pen for you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Congratulations to all of you.
First item in my section tonight is the recognition of the District 15 Spelling Bee winners from all the schools and the overall winner. And Mrs. Mullins is going to be making those announcements.
Good evening. Good evening, President Babcock, Dr. Thompson, and members of the Board of Education, and our wonderful families and community members. I am Colleen Mullins, the District Literacy Coordinator, and I am thrilled to introduce you to our master spellers in our district. Each speller, each student standing up in front of you, first started out with their class spelling bee or grade level spelling bee. They then moved on to their school spelling bee, and then they were part of the district spelling bee, which was on January 12th. I will say that this is a remarkable group, not only because they can spell amazing, words that most of us, without spell check, we would never survive. And these students, not only were they remarkable just how intelligent and smart they are, but they are so calm and courageous. I think the adults in the room at the spelling bee probably had more nerves than you all did. So I would like to just say, before we give the awards and everything, can we just have a round of applause for this amazing group of kids? Now, I asked them if they would like for me to say their names or if they would like to say them, and what did you say? It's a very big audience today. So I am pleased to give them certificates for their awards and introduce you to our district spelling bee winner, who is Calvin. Who is Calvin? And Lily, it was our runner-up. Could you wave to everybody? And a very special thank you to Ms. O'Hara. Where is Ms. O'Hara? Because I recently relocated from New York. So for pronouncing, which you can see I'm even having a hard time now, the words, I would have a bit of an accent. So like water or things like that. So I will say thank you so much to Ms. O'Hara for being our pronouncer that evening. So I'd like to present the certificates. We're going to start with Joseph. If you would please see Ms. O'Hara for your certificate. Congratulations. And Joseph is from Jane Addams, grade 6. Trinity. Trinity is grade 4 at Kimball Hill. Jacob is a Thomas Jefferson 5th grader. From Lake Louise, grade 6 is Randolph. We have Guntas from 6th grade Lincoln School. Ashley is from 6th grade at Paddock, Stewart R. Paddock School. Kirsten is a 5th grader at Graham Sanborn. Thomas is from 5th grade at Pleasant Hill. From Virginia Lake in 5th grade, we have Kellen. Sahithia is from 5th grade at Whiteley. Samira is from 5th grade at Willow Bend. To my right is Rachel from Winston Campus Elementary, grade 5. Anushka is an 8th grader at Plum Grove Junior High. Ratika, who is absent, was from Walter Sunling Junior High. Thank you. In honor, I accept the certificate in her honor. Fawaz from grade 7, Winston Campus Junior High, is also absent. Now we also have for Lily Kim, who is from, sorry Lily. Say your school again. Carl Sandburg. I knew that, I'm sorry. And from Central Road, Calvin, who is, well, fun at Central Road, and then was our district winner, a B winner. So thank you for being such amazing students and for being part of our spelling bee. You are inspiring to all of us. So can I just have one last round of applause for our amazing students? And now, you receive the amazing award, also in addition to this, to the pen. Not everyone is, you can start right that way. There you go.
Congratulations.
Dr. Thompson.
Walk in front of the
Nice work.
Come this way.
Nice job. No, go ahead.
Go right this way. You're going to stay in the line and go, oh, right that way. Okay. Thank you all.
I don't want you to trip over the cord.
Nice work.
Congratulations.
Nice work.
Maybe see you next year. Next item in my section is the recognition of a tradition in the district, sixth grade two-ball tournament winners. And Adrian Bailey is not feeling well tonight, so Dr. Shore is going to fill in for her.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Good evening. President Babcock, Board of Education, and all present. I am proud to recognize our sixth grade two-ball winners this evening. About 60 boys competed at the Palatine Park District on Tuesday, February 7th, and about 160 girls competed on Wednesday, February 8th. We had two divisions, large schools and small schools. The large schools included Hunting Ridge, Lake Louise, Lincoln, Paddock, Virginia Lake, Pleasant Hill, Jane Addams, and Central Road. And the small schools included, were Kimball Hill, Thomas Jefferson, Marion Jordan, Winston Campus Elementary, Willow Bend, Sanborn, and Whiteley. Now, if you're not familiar with two-ball, I was not familiar with two-ball until I started in District 15. It is a very exciting game. It is a two-ball event, obviously, where two students have two one-minute rounds where they compete for different points that are marked on a basketball court. Students need to pass to their partners after shots and move around the court into different spots. They can earn points for attempting shots at each spot, and they were very careful to not travel or double dribble. Spots can be worth 2, 3, or 4 or 5 points depending on the distance from the basket, and both rounds were added together for their final score. It was a very exciting and positive event. It was packed over there for parents, teachers, administrators, friends, and other spectators of all the two-ball competitors. The students put in a ton of time with their intramural coaches who are here with them tonight to practice their basketball skills and to work with their partners. I want to congratulate all of the participants, and here are the winning teams from each division. Mr. Sobel, do you want to introduce your crew?
Okay, I'm David Sobel. I'm from Hunting Ridge, and this is Aiden and Kaden.
Mrs. Rusk?
Hi, I'm Sharon Rusk. I teach at Winston Campus Elementary, and I'm very proud to recognize Tyler and Julian.
Coach Musianti?
Thanks. Jennifer Buciani from Lincoln School, and this is McKenna, and Abby was at a basketball tournament today, so this is.
And Coach Merle.
Yeah, I'm Brian Merle from Sanborn. We competed in a small school girls division, and my girls are actually at the same basketball team, Priscilla and Brooklyn.
Congratulations to our first place two-ball teams and all of the students who participated in this exciting event, and thank you very much to all of the PE teachers in the district.
Dr. Shore, I think there's one more. Anthony needs to announce
I
his.
missed one. I'm sorry. Mr. Drakert. You're standing right next to me.
I'm Anthony Drakert. I teach at Lake Louise, and I'm here with Ryan and Jacob.
Yes, congratulations to all of the winners, and special thanks to their PE teachers for all of the time and effort that they put in. And thank you all for being here this evening.
Nice work. Good job.
Great
Nice
job.
work.
Good job.
Good to see you, John.
Great job.
Good.
Great job. Congratulations, you guys. Congratulations, guys. Great job. Good job.
Good job.
Shake hands, but great.
Nice to meet you. Thanks. Thanks for all you do.
Congratulations.
Thanks for what you guys do. Thanks. Appreciate it. I felt bad I didn't get it this year, but I was there last year. I was excited. Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to next year.
Thank you.
The germs contained.
I apologize. Before we continue, I just have one other spelling bee winner that I'd like to congratulate, and this is Jens from Marion Jordan. So congratulations.
All right, I just have a couple more items in my section. The first, I just want to report to the board the activity of the superintendent's Committee on Communications and Community Engagement. We met on Monday. This is our second meeting. The first meeting was with Director of Communications from Barrington 220. She gave us a lot to think about, told us about what the structure is in her district. We got information from the National School Public Relations Association on what school districts might consider as far as a communications department. And as I stated with the departure of Tim, who was our writer, Tim Waldorf, it gave us an opportunity to restructure the department. So the committee talked about restructuring the department, and we really believe that we need a professional person that's got a degree in communications to come and help us. And so I think that what we're going to do is we're going to be coming back with a formal proposal for the April board meeting about restructuring the department. And so I'm going to give you some information to consider in the next month to look at, and then the formal proposal will be at the April board meeting for you to consider the restructuring of the department. And I think you'll find that our efforts to have two-way dialogue, to reach as many people as possible, to engage the community in as many ways and as often as we can, will be greatly enhanced by the restructuring that's been talked about. So I'm really excited about that. Zubair and Jessica were both there. We had Matt Barbini, a teacher from this building, actually, that's quite knowledgeable about communications and social media, and so we're excited about the proposal, and you should see that in the next week or so, and then we'll have it as a formal action item at the April meeting.
Yeah, I think that the meeting was very productive. I mean, I think that really the idea of enhancing the social media presence of District 15 is probably I would say the biggest thing that came out of it. I mean, I think methods by which districts communicate with the parents have changed drastically, and while we do have a social media presence now, to be able to enhance that is an exciting tool that I'm looking forward to the proposal.
Great. So we'll be sharing that with you shortly, and then bringing you back for the April meeting. The next item in my section is an update from our nutrition committee. That's one of the board's goals for the year, to focus on finding ways to have more nutritional items offered to our students, and maybe even some more culturally responsible items that would be liked by some of our students. And so Dr. Barbini has led that committee. I'm going to ask him to come up and talk about the work of that committee.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Babcock, and members of the Board of Education. Did you know that this week is National School Breakfast Week? And that tomorrow is International School Meals Day, and I'm here tonight talking about a nutrition committee update. So I think that that's very appropriate. In terms of the reason why this work has occurred, or the what rather, is that the Board of Education has a goal for continuous growth and improvement that deals with evaluating our current nutritional service offerings to students, so that we can identify areas of enhancing those offerings, including improving nutrition and providing culturally responsive food choices to our students. So that's the what, or the why rather, that this committee formed. And the how, in terms of how the committee interacted towards working in terms of identifying potential recommendations for us to consider. We're going to talk a little bit about the committee membership, the composition of the committee, the process that the committee followed, the parameters or the guiding principles that the committee worked in, and then before opening it up certainly to questions, the draft goals or recommendations from this important work group. So the committee membership, in terms of a snapshot, we wanted to get as broad base of representation as possible. So we started with our parents. We invited and involved teachers, nutrition service employees. We had a community partner, 2 building administrators, and then 3 district administrators. And this is where, I want to put in a very good word for our Director of Nutrition Services, Mrs. Bobby DePraw, and her Assistant Director, Kristen Voigt. Kristen, are you here this evening? There's Kristen. Thank you for your efforts. Bobby would have been here. However, she is visiting. It was a planned vacation to Colorado. She's not skiing or anything, but she's visiting her grandchild. And so I think that that's a good reason not to be here tonight. So she entrusted me with providing this update. As you can see, our parents were the largest representative group in this committee, and that was done intentionally. It was done by design because their kids are the Nutrition Services Department's #1 customer or client. And so we wanted to make sure that parents' voices were heard. Although there weren't students on this committee, I'm going to use the word yet. I do believe that this is a great place for students to get involved. And as this presentation continues, I'm going to be talking about how we're going to make sure that we capture or solicit student voice in terms of making decisions in the area of enhancing our nutritional content in terms of items served, as well as offering more culturally responsive food choices for kids. In terms of the representation of the group, 11 of our 20 schools were represented at the table, and 4 municipalities, Palatine, Hoffman Estates, Rolling Meadows, and Inverness, and that represented students who are in preschool all the way through 8th grade in District 15. And so many of us that were on this committee have not dedicated our lives for the purposes of food and nutrition services. We like to eat, and I'm one of those individuals. I like to eat, but I didn't really know, and many of us didn't really know, or we at least had various levels of understanding about what it exactly takes to run a food service department in a district that serves 12,000 students on a daily basis. And so we really started off in the first 2 meetings with learning, getting to understand, seeking to understand first prior to coming up with the recommendations or the draft goals that I'll be sharing later. And so this is where Bobby provided in the first meeting in December a critical overview of the Nutrition Services Department. And that's where we learned as a committee, what it takes behind the scenes to serve 7,250 meals. Once again, 7,250 meals on average on a daily basis. And as a parent myself, I can attest that 1 meal a day with my boys might be challenging. Bobby and Kristen and their dedicated staff of professionals serve 7,250 on average on a daily basis. The other thing that we did is we really wanted people to be able to put their eyes on the district's facilities. And so we did have site visits as a part of this as well. Each of the 5 committee meetings we had were at a different school, so that at the beginning of every committee meeting we took time, and Bobby took us on a tour of the facilities so that we could see, where the magic happens. But we also had site visits that we offered during the school day at 3 of our schools so that committee members could actually see, kids going through the lines. I mean, we're talking a setup where hundreds of kids going through the lunch line, getting their food, paying for their food, and then going down and sitting down to eat. We took a look at what items kids were choosing, what items kids weren't choosing, what they were eating, coupled with what they were necessarily throwing away. So that gave us some insight that really helped in terms of that awareness building piece. The second meeting that we had in January focused on having an opportunity to talk about those site visits for those committee members that couldn't go and actually see things in action during the school day. And then Bobby presented an additional time with respect to our existing facilities. And that's where, we learned things about our central kitchen, for example, which is located here adjacent to Walter R. Sunling. That's where we learned that 4,500 lunches and 800 breakfasts are packaged daily and then later distributed throughout the district. That's a lot. That's a lot of lunches and breakfasts, folks. And that's also where we learned that 3,700 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables are washed, prepped, counted, and packaged on a daily basis as well, and then distributed throughout the district. Now, one of the team members that I did not mention when I was going through the committee was our consultant. We did hire a consultant to help us think through this important board goal to give us national perspective in terms of best practices, not just across the state of Illinois, but regionally and nationally. And that added some considerable value, once again, to help the committee members who haven't dedicated their lives like Kristen and Bobby in terms of food services. So that certainly helped us process as we transitioned to the third meeting, where the committee basically took the entire meeting and brainstormed options or possible recommendations in the board goal areas, once again, of enhancing nutrition as well as providing greater culturally responsive food choices. That led to meeting 4, where as a committee, we sat down, and that's where we evaluated the ideas that we brainstormed. We really thought that that third meeting was about ideas. We didn't want to be critical or evaluate at any point at that point. We had a dedicated meeting for that purpose, and it was from that meeting that the draft goals or recommendations were generated. Meeting 5 is coming up. And that meeting is going to be next week. That's where we're going to finalize the draft recommendations that are shared this evening, as well as identifying a representative group, hopefully a lot of our parents, to present with me to the District Wellness Committee in April, because that's the body or entity that's going to take the work that the Nutrition Committee did, review, revise it, and then determine in terms of what they're going to bring to the board or what administratively we're going to do moving forward with respect to the board goal. The committee's recommendations in terms of our guiding principles, this was something that we said we had to work within. I mean, of course, following state and federal nutrition requirements, of which there are several volumes, in fact. Considering recommendations from the consultant. There's no purpose in having a consultant if we don't consider their recommendations. We also wanted to work within the existing footprint. We do recognize that that's something as an area of growth and improvement that we do need to take a look at. We have very, very limited prep space at our elementary level. And what we did as a committee is we acknowledged that, but we said we have to work within that, at least right now. We also indicated that we needed to be fiscally responsible, that there would be change, but that it would be gradual so that our system can accommodate that, given the fact that we have competing priorities and initiatives, as well as that each goal area would have to have an evaluation component. There's no purpose in having a goal if you don't have ways to evaluate it to determine, if it's effective or not. So this is when we transition to the goals that the committee developed. There's actually 2 sets of goals. The committee came up with 4, all right, but then administration has 2 additional goals on top of that, so for a total of 6. So the first goal is that the Department of Nutrition Services will modify menu items, names, and marketing to better reflect the healthy nature of existing offerings prior to the first day of school. So the example that I kept harping on in the committee was Bosco sticks. I had no idea what a Bosco stick was. What I learned is that it's actually a whole grain piece of bread, and they would call it Bosco sticks with dipping sauce. Well, it was whole grain bread, all right, and then marinara sauce. Well, let's call it what it is so people can know what it is. And so that's some of the things that we're trying to do. Once again, grains are healthy. Marinara sauce is healthy and delicious, but we need to call things what they are so people know what they are. So that's the example there. The other thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to go techie, and we wanted to purchase an app, a meal app, and implement that for the start of the 18-19 school year, right? And I believe, and we believe as a committee, in under-promising and over-delivering. If we can deliver on this sooner than the start of the 18-19 school year, we will. But we're looking for an app that can be used on a smartphone, etc. We know kids have them, we know parents have them. It's the way of the world. That will allow our menu items to be seen on a weekly basis or a daily basis, and for kids and parents and staff to look at the nutritional content of each of those menu items, as well as, and this would be great, rate them, because that will help Kristen and Bobby in terms of having metrics about what kids like and what they don't like, so we can possibly adjust our menus accordingly. The third goal in this area is increasing the number of vegetarian options that are served on a weekly basis. And so we are going to begin doing that immediately after the start of the 17-18 school year as well. And then we're going to review our existing menu items in terms of a la carte and pre-plate with an outside consultant and present recommended changes that will enhance nutrition to the Nutrition Committee that we will then take to the Wellness Committee either sometime this year or sometime next year. The committee that Kristen, Bobby, and I, and all of those other 18 members, or actually 16 members served on, is going to be a standing committee now, year in and year out, so that we can focus on this, not just be a one and done, but really look at nutrition and culturally responsive food choices on a regular, ongoing basis. The other 2 recommendation or goal areas are administrative in nature, and they involve surveying, and this is where I talked about making sure student voice is captured. We really need to make sure sure that we survey students. And we're thinking about how we're going to do that. We'd like to do that this year, as well as our parent community in terms of what they like about what's currently offered, what can be continuously improved upon, otherwise what they don't like. But this is also where we're going to say we value diversity, and that's what makes us strong. It's what makes us strong as a district, it's what makes us strong as a state, and it's what makes us strong as a nation. And what we're going to do is, that's what we're going to ask our families, because much of culture is celebrated through food, breaking bread around a table, all right, and spending time with people you care about. And we're going to ask our students and parents what cultural items are served at home that you would like us to consider incorporating into our menu, so that this way it's not just the 18 committee members that make that decision about what is going to be culturally relevant, but that we survey our kids and we survey their families to determine what those things are. And those themes and outcomes from that survey will drive improvements in our nutritional opportunities and in what we serve, but also our culturally responsive choices. And that becomes the metric that the Nutrition Committee will use every year moving forward. The last one is we are going to pilot, and this happens to be one of my favorites, flavor stations at schools to be determined. Flavor stations nationally are really becoming more of a norm, and what that allows kids to do is, customize their meals. And so we'll have spices and sauces and other things, to really individualize meals that we'll pilot, we'll evaluate, and then we'll determine where we're going to go from there. I do have to say, one of the other recommendations in terms of a smoothie machine didn't make the final cut. I'm a little bit depressed about that. I did vote for that. It's not up there. All right. But before I end, I do want to say thank you to the committee. 18 people gave up their time away from their family, their loved ones, their friends, etc., to really tackle this issue and do it in an open-minded way where we learned first, we sought first to understand, and then we delved into the issues. They gave up their time in the service of others, and I want to make sure that I say publicly that I deeply appreciate their efforts, and I know we have some committee members here this evening besides Kristen Voigt, Jennifer Zelazny. So if you could stand up, I want to make sure that you're recognized. Did Jennifer leave from Lincoln? So I think that's it. Jen and I learned that we both like the flavor stations, and we're probably going to trade hot sauces after the meeting in case anybody's interested. So with that being said, that's our update. What questions do you have?
Thorough job. How much weight did you gain?
I had a question. Maybe from speaking with the consultant, some of the culturally responsive foods, I would just, was he or she able to provide examples of just how, culturally responsive foods have been able to work in kind of a mass quantity? Because I would just think that would be the issue about, okay, how do you get, where certain types of foods have been repeatedly done, and so everybody knows, how pizza is going to be, streamlined, and you get to get a lot of it. But for the other foods that aren't regularly provided, did the consultant, was he or she able to provide some guidance with that?
Yes, and so what guidance we received was reaching out not only in the form of surveys, but then demographically having an understanding of the communities that surround each school, and then engaging in conversations within those communities, to really determine what the interest is, so that instead of providing things that kids might not be taking because that's not what they're seeing at home, we can do that. So it's all about conversation. It's about surveying and conversations locally, and that is going to be an opportunity for us, because that could mean that in our district that we're going to have a degree of differentiation. We talk about differentiated teaching and learning for our kids. This is an opportunity for us to differentiate, what we serve in terms of each building based on the demographic around that particular school or set of schools. And so it's really about engaging the parent community and the kids, finding out what they like, and then making some judgments from there.
I think that's a good point. I mean, engagement, we've talked about even with respect to the communications committee about, different ways to communicate. And I think you probably find that some parents get involved with things that they're more passionate about, and food is a passionate subject for a lot of people. So this committee will get a lot of involvement, I think.
And we also talked about having like a food tasting expo. One of the other things that our consultant, Jean Ronnie from Food Service Management LLC, had indicated, and she was very, very helpful to this process. She indicated that what you do is you also offer tastings, and you make it educational, but then you invite people out, and you have conversations about, what the food tastes like, and you go from there.
What's really exciting about this is we celebrate diversity, and we're extremely inclusive of all kinds of students. And so this is a way for students to be proud of their culture and for other kids to get to learn about other kids' cultures if we have culturally responsive food. So it's very an exciting thing.
It's fantastic, yeah.
I'm sorry. Are you proposing then with our nutrition services, then, they are going to be able to differentiate with meals that they prepare for the different schools?
I think we're going to have to get to a point in order to address this board goal about culturally responsive food choices. At a certain point in time, we're going to have to talk about scale. What are we going to do across all 20 schools? But I do very well believe that we're going to have to look individually at schools or subset of schools as well, to be able to make some decisions, that meet this area as well. I do think, to your point, President Babcock, we are going to have to differentiate. We're going to have to scale up, do some global work, but then we're also going to have to differentiate as well.
I think it's great that we're going to get the kids involved. First of all, there's a lot of kids that know that I'm on the board, and I get this quite a bit. When is the food going to get better in some of the schools? But also being on the side of working in the business, I think it's great to see, in talking to a lot of food service directors at trade shows that I go to, the biggest disappointment is seeing what goes in the garbage can and the amount of money that's wasted. So, I mean, on the flip side of offering a better menu and some items that kids will really like, a cost savings that will come to it. And it also could be a big help to someone like me in the manufacturing business. What are kids looking for? We think we know what they're looking for. We produce it and put it out there, and it flops. Great to see a committee like this come about.
And Board Member Seifert, now you can talk to this guy when they talk about that. But one of the things that I seriously want to consider for next year, because this is a standing committee, I do think students should actually be on the committee as well.
Yep.
Because if they are our end users of our nutrition services offerings, they should be, no cliche or pun intended, at the table too.
Yep, I agree.
Today, what kind of labeling do we have around vegetarian meals or ingredients at all? Do we have that labeling going on, or?
I'm glad this is not Final Jeopardy, Board Member Morrison. Kristen?
We do. We did add some vegetarian meat. Every Wednesday we have a vegetarian salad that we offer, and we do try to add in more vegetarian items. That has been a concern for some parents. So.
Do we have it labeled adequately where, a vegetarian student can walk into the cafeteria and readily see that?
Yes,
okay.
It's labeled on the menu as a vegetarian salad, but also if the vegetarian salads are packed in a hinged container and they're marked with a vegetarian sticker, so it's obvious that it's offered there.
Is there any work or focus going forward to improve the way we notify the students of what specific ingredients are in each meal?
So
for those who want to know?
That's the app, the meal app that we're really looking at. What we're trying to strive for here is radical transparency. We want kids and their parents and their staff to know what's on the menu and what ingredients are in each of those items so that they can make as informed a choice as possible about what they're putting into their bodies.
Thanks, Matt. Looking forward to the final report next month.
Yes, we're welcome.
The final item in my section is just a remembrance of Joe Kiska, who passed away this week. Joe Kiska worked in the district longer than I think anyone else. Craig's trying to beat his record, but Joe worked in the district for, I think, almost 54 years. He was 91 years old. He was our historian. He served in many capacities, from teacher to acting superintendent. Joe was a flag bearer for the district, always wanted the best for the district, and much of what we're known for today was the result of Joe being in charge and working here. So he lived a long, good life, always dedicated to District 15, and he'll be missed. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to reading and acceptance of the minutes. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the following meeting of the Board of Education, February 8th, 2017, regular Board of Education meeting as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckert?
Aye.
Kurian?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Motion carries. Before we move on to board discussion and reports, if we've already received several sheets, if anyone is interested in addressing the board this evening, if they would fill out the sheet that was in the lobby as you came in and get it to our board secretary before we reach the citizens addressing the board, we would appreciate it. Moving on. Ed Red, Dr. Chapman.
Well, there's been a lot of discussion and not much action in Springfield. From my perspective and the school's perspective, I think the significant issue would be a trade-off in terms of income tax versus property tax freeze. The disappointing part for us in this part of the state is that we don't get very good return in terms of income tax. That goes to Springfield and is allocated at various parts throughout the state. And of course, the real estate taxes that we do collect are spent locally. So it remains to be seen. So there we are.
Mr. Seifert, the 1-5 Foundation.
The next upcoming event for the 1-5 Foundation is April 22nd at Dirty Nelly's, a Dueling Pianos event on, I think it's a Friday night, but I'm not positive. And details are on the 1-5 website.
What was that date again, Dave?
April 22nd.
Okay. We are going to move on to citizens addressing the board. Please remember that this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, Superintendent Thompson will get back to you. Please state your name and identify any group that you represent. Please limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. If someone previously has articulated something with which you agree, please state that you agree rather than reiterating the entire comment. Finally, avoid comments specific to any person, student, or staff member respecting their right to privacy. This is not the forum to comment on personnel issues. With that being said, we are going to start with Kim Cavill. I'm not sure I said that right.
Do I stand over here?
Yes, right here. You can have a seat.
Sit.
And the microphones are on.
My name's Kim Cavill.
Thank you.
I'm here as a parent, as a district of Palatine, and I also represent over 100 people that are currently outside. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My eldest child attends kindergarten at Lincoln Elementary. Thanks to his wonderful teacher and all the staff at Lincoln, he rates far beyond his grade level and looks forward to school as the best part of his day. My family and I moved to Palatine 3 years ago. We came from Chicago, where our neighborhood elementary school scored a 3 out of 10 stars on greatschools.com. Lincoln Elementary, by contrast, scores 7 stars. As a parent, I'm extremely grateful that my children attend public school like Lincoln, and I want to extend my most sincere congratulations to the school board for their excellent service. You preside over a district with an ISB district financial health score of 3.9 out of 4, which is a miracle in the state of Illinois. Your students boast high rates of academic success and student achievement. The facilities are welcoming, safe, and offer students access to state-of-the-art technology that, as a former teacher, I especially appreciate. In the future, our community has to make some tough decisions. We need a new school. We need to find a way to pay for it without putting anyone at a financial disadvantage. We need to find a way to offer full-day kindergarten, even though the classroom space does not currently exist. We need to maintain the high standards for our excellent student performance in the absence of leadership from both state and federal government. And that is why, as an American and as a parent and as a teacher, I implore the school board to focus on the tasks at hand and not capitulate to the demands of an extremist community group who offers no insight into these very real challenges and only interminable outrage and boundless chaos. The concerns of this group notwithstanding, Title IX continues to protect all students against discrimination, including students who are transgender. And the Illinois Human Rights Act contains specific provisions based on gender identity. In essence, existing state and federal laws mandate that public schools treat all students with dignity and humanity. The current presidential administration cannot and did not change that. I am thankful that my district public schools are strong. They're so strong that they attract people like me from the city and consequently contribute to community growth in a way that other public institutions cannot. Therefore, as residents, we must protect our public schools. We must protect them in our communities because America's greatest resource is not shale oil or technology companies, but our people and our children. As a people, our American identity is forged through a shared commitment to the principle that all people are created equal under the same laws. However, that principle means nothing by itself. It is made manifest only through our actions. Consequently, each American generation quarrels over our principles and how best to carry them out in an ever-complicated world. These quarrels are our American inheritance. For our country exists not as some destination, but as a ceaseless journey, a timeless quest for balanced civil rights. As we move forward in this journey, we must remember that our equality is bound up with one another. People do not have to lose their rights in order for others to gain. So we voice our thanks for your faithful service to our community and our children. We voice our support to our school boards and our public schools. We support our schools, our communities, and our great country, which has declared that every child has the right to an education. And we support you in fulfilling that right, which is the first means that we as an American people fulfill that sacred and original American promise to all our children, and that is of equal opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Linda Capco.
Good evening. My name is Linda Capco. I'm a resident of Palatine, and I am here to discuss or talk about the locker room versus bathroom policy that you have instated at District 15. And I wanted to start off by reading the conclusion of a speech that was given by a group of 10 high school students in District 211 that they state, quote, "Currently, you are allowing one student to do something that others cannot at the expense of many others' right to privacy. Why are our rights and feelings not validated? Why are we being dismissed? We urge you to take a stand and fight for the majority of the students, or actually that really should say all students, who represent the right to privacy within the intimate environments of the restroom and locker room. By blurring the lines, one student receives a special privilege, and if we keep blurring those lines and expanding the boundaries, one day there will be none." That was the final statement of these girls from District 211. And as the previous individual had stated, that we do not have the right to lose our rights. What did she say? We do not have to lose our rights by fulfilling the rights of others. And therefore, I agree with that statement because all children should be looked at as equal and worthy of having their rights validated. I was kind of frustrated at a forum that was held last week. We had journalists there that continue to use the word sex and gender interchangeably because they are two different definitions. Sex is biological, which cannot be changed. Gender, according to medical diagnoses, can be fluid and change. So I was frustrated that it was documented that they stated that all the board members, some were saying that gender or sex could be changed. And I'm here to tell you by basic science, that is not a fact. When you have an XY chromosome, you have an XY chromosome for your entire duration of your life. So those two words cannot be used interchangeably. Title IX protects the definition of sex. It does not protect the definition of gender. Just wanted to state that also. Based on what the girls said at their end of their speech, they were talking about blurring the lines. And I ask you, has the district really stopped to think about and consider when you open the door for one, you then have to open for all? So I ask you, Do you allow a 56-year-old male with a diagnosis of transageism to enroll in your kindergarten class? Do you allow the anorexic child to starve themselves? Do you allow the trans species child not to legally not enroll in school because they view themselves as an animal? And then do you allow that child, if he does attend school, to eat without their hands? Do you allow a trans race student to label themselves a different race on all legal documents? Do you allow a trans-abled student to roam the school freely so that they may look for opportunities to crush a limb or blind themselves? When you accept one, you must accept them all. And I just wanted to know if the board has thought about those kinds of issues. And also with the trans-abled student, with the diagnosis of being trans-abled, do you allow that child or that student to receive an IEP filled with accommodations because they believe that they are physically impaired? I just would like to know that. In the school system, nothing is ever done unless there is valid data. Everything is proven on data. We have to prove data before any kind of accommodation or anything is provided. So I would like to ask the board also, where is the hard data? I'm not asking for opinion or a social agenda. I would like to know where the hard data is that proved to help you guys come to the current policy for this bathroom locker room issue.
10 seconds, Linda.
Oh, okay. I also want to state that the brain does not fully develop until the age of 25, that all children are growing and developing and attempting to become who they are themselves. Some children, sorry, I'm getting nervous now because I'm on a time crunch. All children go through their own personal experiences, and some children choose to do it privately, but that does not limit or invalidate their struggles. They have just as much merit as the person who tries to bring their struggles openly.
Thank you, Liz.
So I challenge you, as I finish here, in a public setting, I would like you to change in front of all of us. And the reason why...
Linda, your time is up, so...
Okay, but think about this.
Thank you, Linda.
Think about this. What I just asked you to do is what a 12-year-old girl feels in the privacy of a locker room. They are feeling that the world is egocentric and looking at them, even in the privacy of a locker room.
Our next speaker is Jane Van Wolfler.
Who's next, Peg?
Jane Van Wolfler.
She's coming.
Okay, good evening. It has been brought to my attention that when a policy change was made within District 15 regarding locker room and restroom access, no notice of policy change was provided to the parents prior to implementation. If this is correct, my next comments are directed more toward the administration than the school board members. Common courtesy and respect to parents would be to notify them before this policy change occurred. As a parent, it is my responsibility to talk with my child as to how I would want them to act or react in that situation. For parents to have no notification opens the possibility that my child may encounter an uncomfortable situation that I have not been able to prepare them for. It is my responsibility as a parent to instill specific morals within my child. It is not the teacher's nor the administrator's responsibility to impose their morals on any child. I'm not saying any specific moral is right or wrong. I am simply saying that it is very disrespectful on the part of District 15 to not advise parents before this change was implemented.
Thank you, Jim. Roger Fraser.
My name is Roger Fraser, and I'm a resident of Rolling Meadows. And I had the honor to teach in District 15 for 28 years. I started my career here in 1977, and I ended it in 2005. And in that space of 28 years, I saw a remarkable sea change in attitudes toward children who were different. In the first year, and this is a little anecdotal, but please bear with me. In my first year in teaching at Paddock School, I remember being in the lunchroom, and a little boy, a very effeminate little boy, took his lunch and sat at a table where there were a few other students. All of those students moved to the end, the opposite end where that little boy was sitting. That doesn't happen anymore in District 15. In 2003, I saw a boy, a Sikh, misidentified as a Muslim student, verbally assaulted at the beginning of the Second Gulf War. Oh, you're an enemy of the United States. You wear a turban. That boy was taken to the principal, and the principal called parents. The point is, these anecdotes show that our school district, District 15, that I'm extraordinarily proud to have worked for, we set the standard not only for superb academic achievement, but we set the standard in this state for what is decent and what is safe for our students. When I left here, there were 62 different languages spoken in our community. Our school district had to address children speaking 62 different languages, and we did it on a daily basis because, as the man who just spoke here about, the necessity for respecting, cultural differences in food. He spoke so eloquently, just reinforced my pride in being a part of this community. And I want to thank you. I want to thank each of you for, again, setting the standard in the state for what's good. It's why people flock to this district, not only, as I say, for the academic excellence, but for the fact that they can trust that their children are going to go each day to a school where they won't be bullied, they won't be picked on, they'll be respected, and not just by students, but by faculty and administrators, and by you. So again, I really, I wish I were teaching today. I love my retirement, but I miss this. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Len Green. Okay. All right, I know I'm going to mess this up. Leslie?
Orange Mindy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have prepared remarks. I felt spontaneously compelled to address the board and the community. I'm Leslie Arizmendi. I'm a Palatine resident, mother of 2 boys who have not yet started attending school in Palatine, and I'm here as an individual, and I felt compelled to speak professionally as a civil rights attorney. I'd like to commend the board for their already inclusive policies towards children who are diverse on multiple different levels. I'm here specifically to address the progressive and open transgender bathroom and locker room policies, and to encourage you to continue to base your policies, as you apparently have, on facts and on a complete understanding of the law, on an understanding of what Title IX protects from a disability rights point of view, which is my specialty, on what the IDEA represents, that it is actually a 504 plan and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act that would provide an accommodation for a child with a physical disability, and not necessarily an IEP and an IDEA. And the reason I mention that is because there was already some lack of understanding spoken by other members of the community in relation to the law. So I encourage everybody listening, including the board, if you ever have any misunderstanding about what has happened in District 211, I encourage you to do what I have, which is actually read the United States Board of Education's opinion last year, before making assumptions based on news articles or word of mouth that certain things were provided that were equal, when in fact they were not, and when in fact they were humiliating, and when anybody who's a member of the community or a parent could read those facts, despite maybe not having the expertise to understand the law. Read the facts. I challenge anyone to read the facts of that particular case, since that is one of the motivations why many people are here, to read that and try to keep your eyes dry, and try to ask yourself if you could go to that student or somebody facing those things and say, yes, I do expect you to stand out in front of your whole school, because other students who may have learned it in the home, may have learned it unfortunately in other parts of the community, that their reactions that are based on fear and stereotypes and not on facts at all, or on any real dangers, take precedent. And for lack of a better term, trump the rights of people who are different, who deserve to have equal access, meaningful access to their educations in a safe environment. And I challenge everybody in this community and encourage the board to continue respecting that we all teach our children, and that the Board of Education support the idea that all children, regardless of how they were born, how they identify, what their capabilities are, how they look to the public, have the opportunity to attend school in this district and grow to be adults that can live courageously, confidently, and hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. Adrian Somerville. Adrian Somerville.
My name is Adrian Somerville. And I'm a trans man. What that means is at birth I was designated female, and I identify as male. I use male pronouns, transitioning into what that means for me. I really felt it was important for me to come here and speak, because so often when we're talking about how bathrooms and locker rooms and how all this stuff regarding trans people affects trans people, we're not looking at trans people. We're talking about the theoretical trans person in the room, as opposed to looking at them and realizing that whenever we say, oh, you can't use the bathroom, oh, you can't use the locker room, oh, you can't use these spaces, we're talking to people. We're saying people aren't allowed to use these facilities that other people are allowed to use. We're saying that these children aren't allowed to go to the bathroom that aligns with them. And that's damaging. I wanted to share more specifically just how damaging that can be. I know that whenever I was growing up, going to school, both in high school and college, I didn't necessarily always feel safe going to the bathroom, not because of rules that were put in place, not because the school board said, oh, you can't use this bathroom. I felt scared because of my peers, because of the staff, because of everyone else who was in the school building, and what they brought to the table. I've never heard of a case of a trans person attacking someone in a bathroom. I have myself experienced violence in bathrooms because I'm trans. And that lives with me. That lives with me forever. The fear of going to the bathroom, which everybody does. And we're asking children to fear going to the bathroom. We're asking children to fear going into like changing spaces. We're asking these children to be afraid for the rest of their lives, just so that people can sit in their old conservative ways regarding what humanity is. And I think that's very, very important to bring the conversation back to not just transgender people, to trans people. The latter word in that being people. We're talking about people. And again, I wanted to reiterate that we're talking about people. I'm going to say it one more time, people. We're not magical, mystical, weird things. We're not delusional. We're not monsters. We're just people that go to the bathroom, that, change whenever we go into, like, workout facilities, whenever we go into, like, other areas, whenever we go into the pool, we're going to change. We have bodies. Everybody has bodies, and they're not weird. They're not abnormal. They're just bodies. Whenever I go to the bathroom, I'm not worried about what other people are doing. I'm worried about myself. I'm worried about going to the bathroom, getting my business done, washing my hands, and leaving. I find more often other people that are very concerned with what I'm doing in the bathroom, that are very concerned with watching me. And I'm like, I'm a little confused why everyone else feels so entitled to ask what I'm doing in the bathroom, to ask what genitalia that I have. That's inappropriate to ask these children. It's inappropriate to ask anybody. And I think it's inappropriate for that to even be a question. I also really wanted to thank all of you here for having these policies in place to already protect trans kids, and I really, really, really urge you to continue protecting trans students. It's not just about whether or not a student can pee at school. It's about the fear from not being able to use these facilities, the fear from the people around them, and that fear causes them not to do well in classes. It causes them to be afraid of just going to school. It causes them to be, fall behind in their homework. It causes them to not want to be active in their school environment. It causes them to just not have a good outlook on life. And I think the point of a school, and what it seems from what I've heard today, the point of this school and these districts is to see kids thrive. And I think for a child to thrive, a child needs to feel supportive. A child needs to feel supported in all aspects of who they are, not just supported in their academic endeavors, but supported in their own personal endeavors and supported in their own personal identity. But thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Adrian. Terry Paulson.
Good evening. My name is Terry Paulson, and I'm a current resident of District 15. My children graduated from District 15 schools. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Many of us are here because we strongly object to your decision to place students of the opposite sex undressed together in the locker rooms of D15 schools. We were told at the community education session that it was supposed to help us understand the session that was supposed to help us understand putting boys and girls together in the locker room, that there are over 900 genders, and male and female are nothing more than arbitrary categories to which doctors cruelly assign newborn babies. How many people here actually believe that? Transgender activists are demanding that we reorganize not just our schools, but our entire society around an alternate reality that does not exist. All empirical evidence suggests that what we are actually looking at is a very strong delusion. Yet, is it any stronger than anorexia, body dysmorphia, agoraphobia, or any number of seemingly intractable mental disorders? Why do we not reorganize our schools and society around those delusions? What, in fact, is the difference between a dangerously thin teenage girl and a girl who thinks she is fat and a teenage girl who thinks she is a boy? If we're honest, the only difference is a multi-million-dollar lobby group and a lot of political power. Educators like to talk about teaching kids to think, but our schools are in fact teaching kids that feelings matter more than facts and that tolerance requires the sacrifice of truth. That it isn't necessary for us to subject our personal feelings and desires to any standard outside of ourselves. If you are going to teach students that a biological girl is sometimes a boy and vice versa, you may as well teach them that 2 + 2 is 5 and the earth is flat. The evidence for it is the same. On one hand, we can and should have compassion for trans people. On the other hand, it's hard not to notice their lack of compassion for others. In their single-minded obsession to be treated as the opposite sex, they seem to be completely indifferent to the suffering their demands inflict upon others. Still, I can follow their motivation. They are truly convinced that if we would all just give in and go along with this, most of their problems would go away. I think they are gravely mistaken, and I think it's selfish, but I can at least understand the motivation. What I can't understand is you. You educators, you school board members, you candidates. This is not personal for you. Why do you not care about the innocence and modesty of young children? Why do you not care that this is only a 10-year-old experiment, the outcome of which we are decades away from realizing? Why do you not care that most kids outgrow gender dysphoria if not affirmed in it, but will now instead be consigned to a lifetime of desperately trying to be something they are not? Why do you not care about the trauma that sharing intimate spaces with the opposite sex inflicts upon the many survivors of sexual abuse? Why do you not care about female athletes whose hard-earned positions will be taken by males? Why do you not care about the truth itself? Or are you simply afraid? The fig leaf is gone. The Obama directive has been rescinded, and the Supreme Court announced on Monday that it is not going to come to the rescue. This rests squarely in your lap, our local school board. I urge you to have courage. Do not continue to capitulate to moral insanity out of fear, if that is what you are doing. God warns us that fear of man is a trap. In the last book of the Bible, there is a scary verse listing a number of groups of people who are destined for the lake of fire. The very first group listed is the cowards. I will leave you with the words of Jesus himself. Quote, "Do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell." God help us to have the courage to do what's right, not only for our own sakes, but also for the sakes of these children. All of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Vicki Wilson.
I'm here tonight to talk about privacy in the private spaces of our D15 schools. The federal guidance that put D211 in the spotlight in 2015 when $6 million in federal funding was threatened, money designated, by the way, for special education and low-income students. That guidance has been rescinded, and there is no federal law requiring schools to violate student privacy. Congress has not acted to change Title IX, and the Supreme Court will not be hearing the case this month after all. As for the state law, we have the Illinois Human Rights Act, and this act has an exception for facilities distinctly private. Since the act does prevent discrimination based on gender identity, yet has this exception, what does that tell you? Well, it tells many fine legal minds that privacy in private spaces is not discrimination. There is very good reason why these private spaces have always been designated by anatomy, an objective standard.
because once you harm a child's modesty and innocence, you can never get that back. Doing away with that objective standard has consequences for vulnerable growing children. This objective standard is not bigotry, nor should it be controversial. This is simply the only way to have a public policy that protects all children, including those who struggle. In no way do I believe a child should be forced into a space where they are uncomfortable. But the space reserved for the opposite sex is not the answer either. This should be obvious. Privacy begins at the locker room door since children change clothes out in the open. Privacy screens inside the locker room do not protect all children from seeing or being seen by the opposite sex. For children who are caught between the two locker rooms, a third option, a place where they are safe and their needs respected. A third option protects every child. This is what I would request if it were my child struggling. I have deep, real compassion for children struggling, so for them and anyone who prefers extra privacy, the district should ensure they have a private and safe place. This is the compassionate and sensitive solution. The other side will say we don't care, or even go so far as to say we think children who struggle with their gender identity shouldn't exist at all. But those are horrendous, outrageous lies. No child should ever be bullied for any reason. And we all need to embrace all the unique characteristics of every child. The activists will also try to say this is all new, times have changed, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of history. The fact is, there have always been children who struggled with their gender identity. This is not new. What is new is how the adults are reacting. I have personally heard from people who grew up wanting to be the opposite sex for years, but then the feelings eventually went away as they reached adulthood. They are so grateful they did not grow up today. They know they would have been given hormones and transitioned, and cannot imagine how miserable they would be today if they had. You see, the research shows the vast majority of children outgrow these feelings. I've also heard from folks who did transition and are suicidal now because they mutilated their bodies and can't fix it. They told me to keep speaking. There is no harm in waiting to transition until one is an adult and the brain is fully formed, but there is harm in pushing kids into it. Great, great harm. One group of fragile children who are often forgotten are the children who have sexual abuse in their history. Statistics show 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18. And much of this abuse takes place in bathrooms and locker rooms. Now hold on. I am not in any way suggesting that children who struggle are predators. Not at all. Let me repeat, this is not about kids at risk of getting abused, but the fact that they are extra sensitive to these practices and policies. Abuse survivors, you see, are especially at risk, even when no harm is intended, because harm automatically occurs as these fragile children suffer flashbacks and significant emotional and psychological distress when the opposite sex is in proximity to them in vulnerable private spaces. But there's more to the story, as Terry mentioned already. You see, D211 went so far as to hire a consultant to satisfy the federal illegal and unconstitutional demands. They've taught the community in education sessions there are more than 2 genders. When asked how many there were, we were told with a straight face it is up to 900 now. Yes, you heard me right, 900. This is not about children who are male and identify as female and vice versa, like there have always been. This is about the 900-plus gender theory. Do you think it's healthy to teach young children there are 900 genders from which they can choose?
Thank you. Before we move on, I'd like to read something from the board that we have all reviewed. Community Consolidated School District 15's practices regarding transgender students' use of bathroom and locker room facilities is rooted in both the state law, Illinois Human Rights Act, and district policies regarding equal educational opportunities, non-discrimination, and gender equity.
I'm sorry.
We listen.
We listen to you.
I would ask that you be as respectful. These policies, 7-10 and 7-20, which were adopted by the district in October of 1994, revised in September of 2012, and November of 2014 respectively, after multiple public readings, are balanced with common sense measures to protect the privacy of all students using these facilities. We're going to be moving on to action items.
I make a motion to approve the March 8th, 2017 personnel report as presented.
Second?
Discussion. Discussion? Roll call.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckberg?
Aye.
Durian?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 17-321, honorable dismissal of teachers. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the honorable dismissal of the teachers as follows. Maureen Anderson, Joy Ward, Robert Boland, Darcy DeLuga, Susan Masterson, Caitlin Matos, Caitlin Nedza, Mary Olds, Monica Pollock, Brooke Seelip, Sarah Smits, and Susan Wares.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
Roughly how many of those teachers, I know we do this every year, how many are rehired usually?
Lisa, do you remember the percentage?
Between 60 and 70% typically.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Eckberg?
Aye.
Durian?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 17-322, dismissal of second-year probationary teacher for reasons other than reduction in force. May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the dismissal of second-year probationary teacher for reasons other than reduction in force as follows. Lawrence Johnson.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Durian?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckberg?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 17-323, bid award for cafeteria tables. May I have the motion, please?
Make a motion to award the contract for cafeteria tables bid 17-013 to Nelson Adams Company of Rialto, California, for a total bid amount in the amount of $145,596.79 as recommended.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Eckberg?
Aye.
Durian?
Aye.
Motion carries.
You know, my wife said, after seeing this, I can never complain about any of her purchases for home anymore when we're spending $145,000 on tables.
Cafeteria tables, yes, yes. Or you could be in big trouble. Item 17-324, request for proposal taxi services for student transportation.
I make a motion to split the contract and award the taxi services for student transportation bid 17-015 to both American Taxi Dispatch, Inc., Mount Prospect, Illinois, and Grand Prairie Transit, Mount Prospect, Illinois, starting March 13, 2017 through June 30, 2019, as recommended.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question. I noticed that one of the vendors is a cost per mile and the other one is an hourly rate. Is there a reason that it's split out into two different kinds of
There is. Mike, you
vendors?
want to handle that question?
It's a very good question. So the district spends about $200,000 a year on taxi services, mostly for McKinney-Vento, which is federal legislation for homeless students. So if a student starts their school year in Palatine 15, becomes homeless, goes to Mount Prospect or Des Plaines, we then have to arrange transportation, which is usually via a taxi cab, and then we split the cost with the other district, or vice versa if they start in Mount Prospect, come to Palatine. The one vendor, which is Grand Prairie Transit, was a new vendor this year, a new bidder, and bid on a per route basis. They didn't have the resources to do all of it, but they bid up to 5 routes. Mr. Ram and I have looked at it. We're pretty sure we could save money by going on a per route basis. And how can we do that? Because they're going to have really like minivans instead of a taxi cab, so we can, depending on the proximity of the students, put 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 students in one minivan and take them to the appropriate places. So that was a little bit different of a bid that they did bid on. It was a bid alternate, but in reviewing the bid alternate, we believe there's cost savings in there. So
it'd be a scheduling similar to what we do with our buses, just on a smaller scale.
It's just on a smaller scale. And it's actually safer, too. It's a safer mode of transportation because it is a larger vehicle.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Morrison? Aye. Seifert?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Egbert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Khan?
Motion carries. Item 17-325, bid award for fuel. May I have the motion, please?
Make a motion to award the contract for the fuel bid 17-016 to Al Warren, Hammond, Indiana, for an estimated annual amount for unleaded fuel and diesel fuel of $449,856 as recommended.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Seifert?
Aye.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Egbert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Motion carries. On the consent calendar, item 17-330, does anyone wish to remove anything from the consent calendar? May I have the suggested motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Roll call.
Babcock?
Aye.
Chapman?
Aye.
Egbert?
Aye.
Gurian?
Aye.
Khan?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Seifert?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
There were 5 requests and/or responses for information under the Freedom of Information Act during the period from February 2nd to March 2nd. On January 17th, 2017, a request was received from Denise Burton, Bishop Plumbing, Inc., Des Plaines, Illinois. The response to this request was sent on January 25th. On February 14th, a request was received from Lindsay Holleran, Office Administrator. The response to this request was sent on February 22nd. February 16th, a request was received from Lindsay Holleran, Office Administrator. The response to this request was sent on February 22nd. On February 16th, a request was received from Gail Newton, Petroleum Traders Corporation, Fort Wayne, Indiana. The response to this request was sent on February 22nd. And on February 28th, a request was received from an anonymous requester. The response to this request is pending.
And with this anonymous requester, we did check with legal and we did have to respond.
Yes.
In light of.
Yes.
We actually have responded.
We are, motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.